Welcome to this video. Just look right here. I'm with my float tube. I've got my FCP V9 from Caterpillar and it's going to let me go on an adventure. And most importantly, to hunt for the biggest fish in the river. Right here, we have a beautiful waterfall that we're going to fish, and after that, we'll let ourselves drift. We'll go down the river, so the Vilaine, and there are huge dead geese in the water, tree trunks, and especially bushes. And we're going to look for catfish with heavy gear. I'll be fishing with a big rod and a large soft lure. I'll tell you about the technique. And the idea is to cast along the edge of these bushes and trees and let the lure sink, to try to dislodge a big fish, so a big catfish. I'd really like to catch my first 2-meter one. That would be the goal. Since it's early in the season, it may be difficult. Everything can come down to one bite. This is my favorite kind of fishing, extraordinary and full of adrenaline. Let's go. First spot is this beautiful spillway. It's a highly oxygenated area where there are often a lot of white fish hanging out. So we're going to try casting a little behind the rocks in the current. It's a very difficult type of fishing because in its behavior, the catfish mainly feeds at night. The advantage is that today the sky is overcast with little light, so tonight, as night falls, we can make the most of it. My small turbine and battery are right under my float tube, and so that's going to allow me to go back up the current or stabilize myself on certain spots. Right now, I'm moving up a bit into the spillway, because there could be something facing into the current. I'm sweeping all areas of the spillway briefly, then we'll quickly drift further down. Alright, the serious stuff is about to begin, heading towards the dead trees. Before continuing my catfish fishing adventure, I would like to share a message to raise awareness among fishermen. Based on a story that happened to me recently, by the water, I was looking for fishing spots. Between Limoges and Clermont-Ferrand, I followed a beautiful river, the Vézère, all the way up to the Great Barrier Dam. An impressive place that seemed to have potential, so I took the big stairs down to the structure's outflow. Here we are, right behind the dam. It creates a super oxygenated area that's really beautiful. But after making a few casts, I quickly found myself in a tricky situation. Here's the footage of these beautiful spots. Something might emerge from the rocks.
Forbidden. It's forbidden. It's forbidden. Stay here, I'm going over there.
There's a fisheries officer who came to see me. He has things to tell me, I think.
And hello, sir, hello.
Hello?
You are in a no fishing zone, okay? For safety reasons related to the structure.
It's forbidden to fish here.
It's within 50 meters downstream of the structure, so it's forbidden. So, are you going to, do you have a fishing license?
Yes, I have my license on my phone, it's fine.
That's perfect for me. There you go, Konstantin, that's it.
That's it, exactly.
That's perfect, you're all set.
I can go further on the river.
You can go downstream from the footbridge over there, that's fine. But you shouldn't stay here for safety reasons due to the structure. It's dangerous for fishermen, so at any moment the bottom gates could open and it could create a wave of several meters. So,
well, I'll move, sir.
have a good rest of your day.
Goodbye. Well, I'll admit to you now, it was actually a little setup meant to get your attention. In collaboration with EDF and the FNPF, our goal is to warn you about the risks associated with this kind of behavior and about the rules. We, as fishermen, can often find ourselves in risky situations, whether it's behind a dam or even much farther away, on the river. The water can rise without warning and at any time of the day. The fishing warden reminded me that slipping, being swept away by the current or getting stuck on the opposite bank can happen. In fact, it can happen very quickly, not to mention drowning. The trick is to stay alert and pick a landmark, like a rock for example, to keep an eye on the water level. Cedric, a technician at EDF Hydro, demonstrated this to me by opening one of the 2 gates to only 10% of its capacity. And that was enough to flood the spot where I was fishing in just a few seconds. To avoid this, here is a short list of good practices to follow near EDF dams. Always stay alert and respect the signs. Fishing is prohibited within 50 meters of the dams and can still be dangerous beyond that. Consult the APMA for information. To prepare for my fishing trip in case of a risky situation, I call the SDIS at number 18. It is because of all these related risks that EDF makes the safety of fishermen a priority. In collaboration with the FNPF, they organize awareness campaigns, install information signs and nautical markers around the structures, and employ on average more than 100 hydro guides each summer. And let's not forget the fishing wardens who bring safety messages directly to the field. Moreover, I had no idea about this, but EDF is involved with environmental associations and local water management stakeholders to support our passion. Restoration of spawning grounds, stocking, creation of fishing routes and piers, like at Lake Barrio, are being implemented to make fishing easier. Finally, and this is out of personal curiosity, Cedric, a technician at EDF Hydro, kindly agreed to show me around and explain how the Monceau-la-Viroile hydroelectric power plant works. The water from the dam flows by gravity into this huge pipe that goes down the hill. The force of the water turns a turbine, which in turn powers an alternator. Thanks to the energy provided by the turbine, the alternator produces alternating current. To give you an idea, this small power plant produces enough electricity in a year to supply a city of 22,000 people. I found that impressive. By the way, water converted to energy is released downstream from the hydroelectric plant, causing levels to rise at any time without warning. You also need to stay alert and follow the best practices we discussed. I wanted to thank EDF and the FNP once again for this collaboration. Most importantly, I hope this helps fishermen avoid mistakes. Now it's time to go back to fishing for catfish. Here we are. We're finally reaching the first interesting spots. Like I mentioned earlier, those famous trees you see just behind me, those are the areas we're going to target. And I especially wanted to talk to you about technique, fishing, and equipment. So here, I'm using a heavy rod and a big reel. You'll find all the information in the description. For those who ask me every time, I always give all the details. So, a thick braided line, 0.38 mm in a heavy fluorocarbon leader, 1.0 mm with a graph knot, and we've got a force de fer jig head, 12 grams. With a shad, so a row vibe with a big paddle tail, that's going to create strong vibrations, which is very important. And as you can see, the setup is overall very simple. I don't use a treble hook because it often injures the fish, or I might get snagged on obstacles, since what I'm actually going to do is literally cast right in there. So, we're going to have two types of spots. We'll have these dead trees and the weed beds, the weed plateaus, the dead trees. Actually, I'm going to skip, so I'll make my lure bounce under the trees to reach the catfish that are hiding in there. I'll reel in slowly until I get a big bite. That's exactly what I don't wish on Jean-Baptiste. Honestly, you'll see, it's incredible. And the second spot's the weed beds, where I'll actually cast right into them and rip them out with the reel. So, it really puts a strain on the gear, it pulls on your arm, and that's why you shouldn't use treble hooks. If you only catch a few weeds on a single hook, you can still reel it in. And the lure is still swimming, so let's go. We're going to go down a bit and fish spots similar to the ones behind me, and we're hoping to get that big bite. There are some beautiful weeds here. We're really at the start of the drift. These aren't the best spots yet, but throughout the day, the catfish will hide in there, in the branches. And actually, to cast my lure under the weeds, I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to skip it, so make my lure bounce, and that will let me drop it right under the bushes. And here, I reel in slowly in a straight line. No need to add much action, pretty close to the bottom, and you have to stay alert, because often there will be several scenarios. When it comes to the bite, sometimes you'll get a bite right when skipping, so when the lure drops on the way down, and that can really catch you off guard. Sometimes the catfish follow right up to our fins, so you must reel in completely. That's how it's going to be all day. Precision fishing, so it's both technical and above all, a mental game. Because doing this all day, we might only get one bite. Well, it's not necessarily easy. You have to stay focused all the time because the bite can really come at any moment. Be prepared to fight the fish hard. Once it grabs the lure, it will quickly try to bury itself in the cover, so you'll need to pull with all your strength. So it doesn't get into the trees, or you'll definitely break off. That was a round. Yeah, let's move on. Yes, ouch. First one, what a beauty. It's a small one to start with. It was at the alarm clocks. That's a very good sign. Magnificent. Little catfish. Yes, woo, come on, woo. Come on, that's it. First little catfish.
That didn't take long, huh?
In the bushes, even though we're not at all in the best spots yet, it's still nice. Well, look at this right by the edge here. So it's really a small specimen. We've got a fish that's about 1 meter long. You can see it has long barbels. For those unfamiliar with catfish, they use these to detect prey in the water. And it also has a whole series of sensors along its body that allow it to detect vibrations, so lures and prey, so it can attack and capture them. Its eyes are small compared to its body, so it can barely see. Vision isn't its main sense. It mostly detects vibrations and is a very powerful muscular fish. You saw how hard my big rod got hit by that small fish? Imagine what it's like with a fish that's 1.5 or 2 meters long. That's what we're after. Behind me, new area. That's what I was telling you about, those famous beds of aquatic plants, those patches of water lilies that we're going to pull up with the soft lure. So, well, the little catfish, I caught it in a bush. By the way, those are far from the best spots. The best spots are going to be at the end of the drift. There are huge trees in the water, big bushes, where I've already hooked and broken off on some really big catfish. And here we have a huge bed of water lilies, and I'm going to fish it. And actually, I'm just going to cast my lure right up against the bank and reel it in very slowly. And I'm actually going to intentionally get snagged in the weeds, and by moving the weeds like that, by pulling them out, the catfish should detect it, and this technique works very well. Normally, this first little catfish is a very good sign for the rest of the session. It can show some activity, so I'm even more stressed. I tell myself that with every cast now, it could be a big bite and a beautiful catfish. Oh. Catfish, little catfish there, and no, he followed me all the way to my fins. He suddenly took off. It felt like an explosion. They're really active now. I was reeling in my lure quickly. Right now, I can tell you I have a feeling. Just in front of me, there's a beautiful bush, a tree falling into the water, and a whole series of them. Here, I know that over the next 200 meters, we could really get a bite, and we could really come across a nice fish. Yeah, fish, yes. Yes. No. Not that he goes into the bushes. It's prettier. It was fine anyway. I can't tell. Anyway, look, nice touch. I think it's bigger than the previous one because I can't reel it in. That's true, I see it. It's a bit bigger. Yes. Ha, 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 ha. It's starting a fight. You have to persevere, huh? Magnificent. They really like the orange rank vibe. I'm so happy. We'll keep persevering, and this session is turning out amazing. Perfect. There we go, number 8. Look at my lure, how scraped up it is. And actually, that's because of the teeth. Right here, there are plates like cheese graters, and they're full of tiny teeth. Actually, they're reversed in this direction. So when the prey comes in, it actually gets caught here and can't get out. That's why it ends up completely shredding soft lures, totally grating them. I'm happy they're getting bigger now. That's the food of the ones we're going to look for. I'm happy with those 2 fish, but there are still many small ones. I hope we won't stick with this size and that we'll get a bigger one. It's true that with this technique, skipping with a lure, it's going to be rare and difficult to catch fish over 2 meters. I just got a big bite. Come on, I don't think it's coming back. It always gives me an adrenaline rush, since at any moment you could get a huge bite, but you never know if it's just a small one like the one I caught earlier. Or a large thing at least 1.5 or 1.7 meters long can drag us into the branches, which makes you stressed every time. Alright, let's go a little further and look for other good spots. We have beautiful areas here. We've progressed in our drift and are nearing the end of the afternoon. The evening bite is approaching, so normally these are the best hours for catfish fishing with skipping, which are early in the morning and late in the evening. We have some areas that are a bit different. So now we really have bigger trees that stick out, some deeper spots, larger areas, and we also have huge dead trees that have fallen into the water. So, much more defined spots, so maybe we have a chance to trigger a bigger fish here. It always has potential. Let's go check out the dead tree that fell over there.
It has a crack in its eye.
It's a big oak that fell. There are definitely some under there. I'm carefully looking between the branches in case I see a hare's tail. In any case, there's life here. There are lots of fry among the branches. With the 2 fish we caught earlier, I said I had a good feeling about this session, and now I feel it even more. Look, right in front of us, there's a huge catfish carcass. That's exactly what we're after, but, well, alive. This one's full of maggots, it's horrible, so yeah, it's dead. And I think it's been dead for quite a while. It's about 1.7 meters long, a beautiful specimen. I don't think it died naturally. A fisherman likely stabbed it, and as it's a living creature, I find it very unfortunate. There, it's crawling with maggots. With these first 2 catfish, I expected to get another bite pretty quickly, but that wasn't the case. I focused, knowing that the next part of the drift was really the best. So, at every tree, cast after cast, I made sure the lure landed perfectly in the branches, in the bushes. But I didn't get a single bite, not the slightest bit of activity. I chose to stick it out, hoping the evening would bring pleasant surprises, but it didn't. We drifted so much that we had to come back at night with Alexandre, so the day is over. But I'm not going to give up because of that. We'll meet again tomorrow for a new strategy. Here we are for this second day. Look, the river is almost empty. They lowered the water levels because they're doing some work right next to it. We're on a stretch that's just above the one we did yesterday. It's really strange to see the river like this, to see the spots completely empty. Usually I fish for chub here. These are really good spots. And you can see they're rebuilding the dikes because everything was damaged after this winter's flood. It was the flood of the century. It caused mud flows, so there are spots that could be interesting. Well, for fishing, the catfish can gather behind to hunt all the whitefish. It brings a big supply of food. But above all, what I'd like to do here, it's an opportunity, because it almost never happens, well, it's to fish for catfish in clear water. The Vilaine is usually a rather murky river. Right now the water has cleared and levels have dropped. I'd like to try sight fishing for catfish. Only a few small spots remain in the branches, with some bushes and leftover water lilies still in the water. Logically, the catfish should be gathering there. I'd really like to try this kind of fishing. I'm in my float tube, float ready, and we're about to head out. This second day could be decisive. We're going to quickly check out the spots where the work was done, the mud flows, and the water outlet. It's incredible to see the river like this. Given this exceptional situation, I wanted to remind you again of the importance of getting proper information before planning your fishing trip. With this construction and very low water levels, I checked in advance with my local APPMA to find out if it was dangerous or if fishing was actually allowed on this part of the river. They explained to me that there was no risk of water level changes during the construction work, and that as long as there is free movement of fish, fishing is indeed allowed. It's important to note that, in my department, fishing near spillways is allowed as long as you hold the rod in your hand. If you find yourself in this kind of situation, I also encourage you to get proper information, especially since the regulations can vary from one region to another. Quick strategy on lures. Yesterday, I often used the big rock vibe shad while fishing under overhanging branches. With skipping here, we're on completely different spots. There's more water, a lot of rocks, current, and very little depth. I'm likely to get snagged with this. So I'm actually going to switch to a big lucky yellow spinnerbait with 6 lures. It's really flashy, the water is murky, but most importantly it's going to vibrate well. And it's going to position itself like this in the water. It'll be able to hit against the rocks, and it'll hold up well in the current. I'm starting at the main water outlet, where they opened the gate to drain the locks. There might be a catfish or two hunting in there. I think we're going to check out the mud flow just behind the construction work. So the little mudslide is right there. There's still quite a bit of water, yes. It's about 1 to 1.5 meters deep there. That's more than enough to host a catfish. Nice hole. It would be crazy to catch one here. There's definitely enough water there. Alright, one last cast, then we'll drift down.
We've got a nice drift ahead of us.
Up. We've arrived at the first interesting spot, right by where we entered the water. You can clearly see the water level has dropped a lot. You can see all the banks with clusters of roots, and there are trees that have collapsed, so there are remains of bushes and roots in the water. I'll slowly get closer, and if I spot any, I'll approach discreetly and put the lure right under their noses to get a strike. I'm moving ahead to see if I can spot one. No, I don't see any there. Let's move forward. I know this spot very well. I've already seen catfish pass between the rocks in the summer. There's a small hole behind, so it also makes great hiding spots for catfish. I'm going to approach slowly. There's a tiny bush. I approached it slowly, and as I got closer, I saw two shapes. I didn't know if they were branches, and looking more closely, I'm pretty sure there are 2, maybe 3 catfish that are about, let's say, from 1 meter 20 to 60 centimeters. They're right there in shallow water. I'm going to downsize. I'll use a rod that's 26.5 with a nice jig head, strong hook, and I'll try to jig the lure in front of their whiskers. Let's see if I can get one to react. Let's give it a try. I'll start by casting under the bush here. There's one right there. There are 2 of them. I'll approach them from the other side. You can see their tails sticking out. There's a small one in front of me, and the 2 bigger ones aren't facing the right way. Oh, he hit it and then swam away. That was the smaller one. The 2 bigger ones aren't facing the right way. He's coming out, he's coming out, he's right there. He's leaving, they're not feeding. It's so frustrating to see such big fish really in just a bit of water right at our feet, but they're not feeding at all. This is going to be tough. It doesn't make fishing easy, that's for sure, but it really shows how many catfish there are. There are a lot of them here. We'll check the next trees. We need to be discreet and find an active fish. Oh! Wow, its body is huge. It's there, it's 2 meters long, it's 2 meters. The monster, it's right there. It's at my feet. I see it, it's turning. As if it's searching. There, 2 meters easily. I think we all know that feeling as fishermen, when you have fish that big swimming past your fins, but it's impossible to get them to react. That feeling is something special. Because on one hand, you have all that adrenaline that makes you want to keep going, but on the other hand, you have the frustration that makes you want to give up. And on top of that, the bad weather showed up. That's when I really started to question myself. It's true that while going down the river, some areas reminded me how much the water level had dropped. These conditions might actually be bad for fishing. The catfish seem scared or stressed. Still, I kept fishing around submerged trees, and every time it's the same scenario. Refusal after refusal after refusal. I also wanted to tell you something. Most of the fishing videos you see on the internet only show one side of reality. Published videos usually feature fish, but many unreleased videos show the reality that isn't shared. Because, as is often the case, fishing is too complicated or the weather conditions are too difficult. I'm mainly thinking of beginners. Remember that to avoid losing motivation. You asked me for it, and I really intend more and more to show you this reality in my videos. But you'll see that by persevering, great things can happen, even when fishing is very complicated. Right there in the current, there's a nice catfish, probably around 1.20 meters. I thought it was 1.40 meters, but it's smaller. He's not interested. There are several of them. There's one there, there's another one there, and there's another one over there that's bigger. Yeah, that's the biggest one. Oh, he got scared. He got scared. I literally moved 50 meters away. It's really frustrating to see all those catfish tails there in the juicy spots. But they're afraid of my chatterbait, and here we're really just next to them. We've got rocky drop-offs again, lots of stones. I'm worried about snagging the chatterbait, so I'll switch to the spinnerbait and fish the edge. There's a drop-off with weeds along the bank. The spinner should work well. Let's trust it. It's very beautiful. There. There. There was a 2-meter one over there. There's a catfish that got away again. I had it, I missed it, it ran off. Wow. Right ahead, there's a rocky slope creating great shade. Don't overlook these spots. Even without obstacles, they're often really nice. We'll make a few casts there and follow the slope closely. Yes, magnificent fish. What is it? It's an incredible pike. I don't have a landing net, a net. A beautiful pike with a catfish spinnerbait, that's it. Here it is, my little one, with the lucky yellow spinner. Really meant for catfish. A beautiful fish that must be about 65 centimeters. So, big lures don't just catch catfish. Ah, what a beautiful surprise. Oh, I scared a catfish. It's coming up right there. It's coming up. I'm going to change my lure. It'll make for a smaller mouthful, a little chatterbait. I'll try to jig it right under his nose. He came up just on the bush above. Oh, he came to check it out. He came to check out my chatterbait. He missed it. Oh, il est juste là. Well, what's happening is really incredible. I just scared off a catfish there. Then it attacked me. It moved over to that bush. I went in there and I saw that there were actually 3 or 4 of them. I don't have a lure smaller than the chatterbait. I'll aim for one right in front of its whiskers. Let's see if it bites. Yeah, it took it right there. There it is, it took it right there. I'm so disappointed. At the same time, it's so complicated here. Point blank, I'm almost got my butt in the water. You just have to tease them right in front of their whiskers. I'm going to go back to the first area where I already saw it. Also, there are always several of them in the bushes, so we might run into a big one. He's back in position, so I'm not sure if it's the same one. He's just behind that little hole there. I'm going to try to tighten my brake properly. I'm going to get closer very slowly. I'm going to get in front of the whiskers. He's interested. He's moving aside. Come on, come on. Yeah, I got it. I got it. He took it. Woohoo. Yes. Magnificent subtitling Malinois. That's it. Woohoo! Oh, the power. You really have to go get it in the branches. Woohoo! No, I actually hooked it in the side. Shoot! I actually got it in the fin. Well, it's okay. Unfortunately, you got it by the book. I think in the end, it just passed in front of my lure. I thought it had taken it, but actually I hooked it again on the pectoral fin. Alright, I'm going to release it. Come on, big guy. Wow. Crazy action. This fishing session, what was it? Difficult and mentally demanding, but I really enjoyed sharing it with you. Just seeing the fish like that moving around in the clear water, seeing them among the branches, it was just fascinating. And for me, it made up for the lack of activity. I definitely plan to go back and redeem myself for that. I invite you to subscribe so you don't miss anything.